In 1958, the World Cup produced a moment that football has spent 68 years trying to repeat. A 17-year-old Brazilian forward named Pelé arrived at the tournament and scored 6 goals in 4 matches, including a hat-trick in the semi-final and 2 in the final. He wept on the shoulder of his teammate Didi when the final whistle blew. The whole world watched and understood immediately that it had witnessed the arrival of something it had never seen before and might never see again. That feeling, the arrival of something on the biggest stage that could not have existed anywhere else, is what the World Cup has always promised. The idea that once every 4 years, a single tournament reorganizes football's entire hierarchy, that the unknown becomes a legend, the small becomes large, and the result you assumed before kickoff is the one that least resembles what actually happened. The 2026 World Cup is not delivering on that promise. It is delivering on something different, something simultaneously more democratic and less transcendent, something that may be better for the game in the long run and is almost certainly less magical in the short one. This is not the same World Cup anymore. And the evidence, specific, statistical, and impossible to dismiss, is already in front of us. Start with the number that defines this tournament above all others. Turkey registered 62 shots across their 2 group stage matches against Australia and Paraguay. 62 shots. Not across a round of 16 or a quarterfinal, across 2 group stage matches that they lost. 0 goals. According to Opta, that is the highest number of attempts without scoring across any 2-match span in World Cup history dating back to 1966. Turkey arrived in North America as the tournament's favorite dark horse. Arda Güler, 20 years old, Real Madrid's most creative force this season, was the player most tipped to become this tournament's breakout star. Kenan Yıldız beside him, Hakan Çalhanoğlu, anchoring the midfield, a generation of Turkish talent that coaches and analysts had spent years building toward exactly this stage. In their first match against Australia, Turkey generated 30 shots. They managed 0 goals. Australia scored twice from 4 attempts. Arda Güler alone took 8 shots in that game, more than any other player managed in any single game at this tournament. A debutant Australian goalkeeper named Patrick Beach made 8 saves, the most by any Australian goalkeeper in a World Cup match. At the other end, Australia broke from one of those saves within 17 seconds and scored. Turkey looked up at the scoreboard having created everything and converted nothing. 4 days later, against Paraguay, Turkey produced 33 more shots, 78% possession. Their expected goals total across both matches was 3.5, meaning the data said they should have scored between 3 and 4 goals. They scored 0. They were eliminated before their third match. 62 shots, 3.5 expected goals, 0 actual goals. 0 points, first European team out. That statistic is not a story about Turkey being unlucky. It is a story about what happens when a tactically sophisticated team built around intelligent, creative players meets 2 disciplined sides whose entire preparation was designed to absorb pressure, compress space, and punish on the counter. Australia deployed a 5-4-1 low block that funneled every Turkish attack wide. Paraguay played 80 minutes with 10 men after Miguel Almirón's red card and still held Turkey scoreless. The structure was not weaker than Turkey's quality. The structure neutralized Turkey's quality entirely. That is new. That is the thing the competitor scripts are failing to name. Now place Turkey's exit alongside what else happened in the same 2 weeks. On one Monday, all 4 World Cup matches ended in draws, the most in a single day of men's World Cup football since 1958. Spain, the second-ranked team on earth, drew 0-0 with Cape Verde, a nation of 525,000 people in their first-ever World Cup appearance, despite producing 27 shots. Cape Verde then drew 2-2 with Uruguay. A third draw in their third match clinched second place in the group, making Cape Verde the smallest nation ever to reach the World Cup knockout rounds in their debut tournament. New Zealand, ranked 85th, the lowest-ranked team in the entire field, came back twice to draw 2-2 with Iran. Curaçao, a Caribbean island of 158,000 people, held Ecuador goalless, with their goalkeeper Eloy Room making 15 saves, equaling Tim Howard's World Cup record. Qatar held Switzerland to a draw. Bosnia and Herzegovina drew with Canada. Egypt beat New Zealand 3-1 for their first ever World Cup win. Saudi Arabia drew with Uruguay. Morocco held Brazil 1-1. Belgium, the nation that spent an entire decade ranked among the best sides in the world, drew with Egypt. The competitor script covering this story will give you these results as a list of upsets. What it will not give you is the explanation beneath them, because these results are not upsets in the traditional sense. An upset implies that something unlikely happened. What is happening at this World Cup is that the unlikely has become the baseline expectation. Through the first 24 matches, the goal differential was unchanged compared to Qatar 2022, despite the tournament having expanded to 48 teams and despite the warnings that more minnows would mean more lopsided results. The floor has not dropped, it has risen. Mexico coach Javier Aguirre, after his team survived a genuinely difficult group stage opener, said it plainly. It's not easy to win. Really, believe me, the teams have been improving. Until recently, we didn't know much about Cape Verde, and there it is. Here is the mechanism the competitor scripts all miss. The World Cup used to operate on information asymmetry. Brazil in 2002 had tactical knowledge, player development systems, and physical preparation methods that simply did not exist in most of the world. Spain in 2010 had built a positional system, tiki-taka, that opposing coaches had not yet figured out how to break. Germany in 2014 had perfected a high-press structure that was a full tactical generation ahead of what most international sides were capable of deploying. That asymmetry is gone, not declining. Gone. Video analysis software that once required specialist departments and seven-figure budgets now runs on a laptop in any language in any country. Sports science methods developed in the academies of Barcelona and Bayern Munich are documented in academic journals read by coaches in Curaçao and Cape Verde. Every system that once gave an elite team its edge, the high press, the low block, the positional structure, the midfield press trap, has been studied, broken down, replicated, and handed to every coaching staff on earth with an internet connection. Australia's Tony Popovich did not improvise his 5-4-1 low block against Turkey. He built it specifically to deny Güler the space between the lines, to funnel attacks wide, to compress the zone where Turkish creativity operates, and to punish on the counter exactly as the data predicted Turkey would be vulnerable. It worked perfectly. It produced 62 shots and 0 goals. The system beat the talent. What once separated elite teams from the rest was access to systems and knowledge. That gap has closed. What the gap has been replaced by is variance. On any given night, any team with a coherent tactical structure and a goalkeeper in form can hold the world's second-ranked side scoreless. The evidence of that is not one result. It is every result at this tournament. And here is the trade-off football made without asking anyone. The World Cup used to manufacture superstars on a predictable schedule. The 2010 tournament turned Mesut Ozil from a Werder Bremen midfielder into a Real Madrid signing within weeks of the final. Thomas Müller took the Golden Boot and became a Bayern institution. 2014 belonged to James Rodriguez. 6 goals, the volley against Uruguay, €80 million to Real Madrid. 2018 crowned a 19-year-old Kylian Mbappe, who scored in the final and reshaped the sport around himself. The 2026 tournament is 2 weeks old, and the breakout name that everyone expected, Arda Güler, is on a plane home with 62 shots and 0 goals to his name. The breakout performance of the group stage belongs to a 40-year-old goalkeeper who plays in the Portuguese second division and kept Spain scoreless. The breakout moment belongs to Eloy Room, a 37-year-old Miami FC goalkeeper from a nation of 158,000 people, making 15 saves against Ecuador. These are beautiful stories. They are not the same stories the World Cup used to tell. A tournament engineered for parity produces balance. It does not produce monsters. It does not produce the kind of dominating, era-defining performance that football spent 60 years building its mythology around. When the floor rises to meet the ceiling stops producing legends at the rate it once did. Brazil closed out their 3-0 win over Haiti by dropping deep and sitting in. Not pushing for a fourth goal, not expressing anything. Alisson made saves in a match already won. The nation that gave the world Jogo Bonito chose control. Carlo Ancelotti, Europe's ultimate pragmatist, coached the most expressive football culture on earth with the cold efficiency of a side protecting a narrow lead. That is not a failure of Brazil. It is the logical endpoint of an evolution that even the most expressive team in football history could not resist. Two conclusions sit inside the same evidence. Both of them are true. The first, football has never been healthier. The gap between the best and the rest is the smallest it has ever been. Any nation, on any night, can beat any other. The result is no longer written before kickoff. For the game as a global competition, that is progress. That is the sport functioning as it was designed to function. The second, football traded its greatness for its fairness. It engineered away the dominant teams, the generational stars who decided tournaments on their own, the tactical revolutions that left opponents unable to process what they were facing, the performances that reorganized football's entire hierarchy inside a single month. What is left is more even, more tactical, measurably less terrifying. The 17-year-old who arrived at the 1958 World Cup and made the whole world understand it had witnessed something it might never see again. That player does not exist at this tournament. Not because talent has declined, because the systems designed to neutralize talent have never been better, more widely distributed, or more precisely deployed. 62 shots, 0 goals. The most statistically baffling exit in recent tournament memory. That number is not a Turkey problem. It is a World Cup problem. And it is the clearest evidence yet that the tournament is not what it used to be. The question is whether what it is instead is better or worse. The evidence is in. You decide. If you watch football closely enough to feel the difference between what it was and what it's becoming, subscribe. And tell me in the comments, is a World Cup where anyone can beat anyone actually more exciting, or has something essential been lost? I read everything.